Andrew Berry's front office isn't just under fire, it's on the verge of collapse. What began as a quarterback controversy has spiraled into a symbol of everything wrong in Cleveland's approach to team building. The refusal to start Shadur Sanders, despite glaring evidence that he offers more upside than Dillon Gabriel, is being chalked up to executive ego, flawed scouting, and fear of being proven wrong.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Instead of correcting course, the front office is doubling down, locking into a strategy that protects their draft credibility at the expense of actual wins. The fallout is bigger than just a losing record. Sanders represents the kind of dynamic, high-ceiling talent Cleveland desperately needs, but they're choosing to sideline that promise out of pride. This isn't just about one player or one coach. It's a systemic failure to value performance over politics, and it's placing the entire direction of the franchise in jeopardy. The Cleveland Browns are unraveling at a pace even their fans couldn't have predicted, and it's not just because they're 2-6. It's because they've made the exact kind of strategic blunders that define franchise failure. The kind that haunts locker rooms, burns through coaching staffs, and wastes elite talent before it even gets off the ground. At the center of it all is Shadur Sanders. Bench. Sidelined. Held back under the guise of a phantom injury that's become one of the worst-kept secrets in the league. From the outside looking in, this doesn't resemble injury management. It looks like fear. A complete organizational fear of what happens when Sanders takes the field and shakes the foundation of the Browns' fragile hierarchy. And now it's boiling over. Reports say Kevin Stefanski wanted Sanders to start. Not in theory. Not in the future. Right now. But after weeks of being treated like an afterthought, Sanders declined. He pulled the trigger, not to play but to take a stand. And it's hard to blame him. He wasn't going to step in as a Hail Mary option when the team had already dug the hole and tossed in the season. He wasn't going to be used as a temporary fix to protect a staff scrambling for relevance. You can't ask for loyalty from someone you've ignored. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, still the starter, continues to underperform. And not just statistically. His presence on the field is safe, stiff, and uninspiring. Less than 60% completion rate. Drive-killing decisions. A game plan so conservative it's hard to tell if he's playing quarterback or just damage control. And that's what the coaching staff has anchored themselves to. They've refused to adapt. Refused to shift course. Refused to even admit they might have made a mistake. Instead, they've opted for cover stories. Shedur's injury isn't detailed. There's no recovery timeline. No visual evidence. No status update. Just a vague placeholder that's lost credibility with every passing week. The longer it goes unaddressed, the clearer it becomes. This isn't a medical decision. It's a political one. The conspiracy theory that Stefanski preferred Bailey Zappe over Sanders doesn't sound like a stretch anymore. It sounds like a window into the internal fear of what Shedeur represents: control, charisma, and independence. The kind of player who doesn't just run a system but challenges it. And apparently that's a threat. This franchise is operating like it's afraid of its own potential. Like the idea of letting talent lead is more dangerous than losing games. And that fear is bleeding into every corner of the organization, from coaching decisions to front office strategy. General manager Andrew Berry has his fingerprints all over this mess. Gabriel wasn't just drafted. He was overvalued, elevated, protected. And now, even as the offense struggles, Berry and Stefanski seem frozen in place, unwilling to admit that Shadur Sanders might already be the best quarterback on the roster. That unwillingness is dragging the Browns deeper into irrelevance with every loss. And the media has noticed. Cleveland beat writers are no longer dancing around the topic. They're openly asking, why isn't Shadur playing? Why hasn't there been any clarity on his condition? Why does the franchise look more concerned with optics than outcomes? National media is asking the same thing. Analysts are baffled. Former players are weighing in. And fans? They're livid. Boos have become routine. Social media is non-stop. Calls for a change grow louder after every 3 and out. But nothing changes. That stubbornness is more than just frustrating, it's dangerous. Because Shedeur isn't just a backup quarterback. He's a potential franchise cornerstone. And the Browns are risking not just his development but his trust. And that's something you don't get back once it's gone. Every week he doesn't play is another week of lost growth. Lost film. Lost chemistry. There's no replacement for real in-game reps. No way to fast-track leadership from the sideline. And no excuse for sitting him when the starter continues to offer no spark, no identity, and no results. The cost of this indecision is stacking up fast. The Browns are already a laughingstock to some, but the situation is close to tipping from embarrassment to dysfunction. This isn't just poor management. It's organizational self-sabotage. And if they think they can ride this out quietly, they're wrong. Because there's one thing they seem to be forgetting. Shadur Sanders isn't just a player. He's a platform. And he's got Dion in his corner. That silence you've heard from the Sanders family? It's deliberate. But if the past tells us anything, it's that when they decide to speak, they don't hold back. Dion Sanders doesn't do subtle. He doesn't do patience. And if he decides that his son's career is being mishandled, the Browns will be dealing with a PR explosion they are not equipped to contain. And maybe that's what it takes to force change. Because internal pressure clearly hasn't worked. Fans have been screaming. Media's been pressing. Stefanski reportedly begged Sanders to start. Nothing has worked. So what's left? An ultimatum. Or worse, a trade demand. Because that's not off the table anymore. The longer this goes on, the more likely it becomes that Sanders and his camp will start exploring other options. Whether it's through whispers to the media or formal discussions, once that door opens, it doesn't close. And other teams? They're watching this unfold closely. There are at least half a dozen franchises that would love to bring Shedeur in and build around him. That wouldn't fear his brand. That wouldn't bury his potential to protect a flawed starter. That wouldn't silence their own future. If Cleveland keeps fumbling this, they won't just lose a season, they'll lose a quarterback. And worse, they'll lose him before they ever gave him a real shot. That's the tragedy here. Shadur Sanders was supposed to be the next chapter. A high-upside, high-character, high-profile quarterback who could reset the narrative in Cleveland. But now, he's becoming the symbol of everything the Browns can't get right. Talent wasted. Time mismanaged. Vision clouded by ego. And the cost? A 2-6 record. A fractured fan base. A coach fighting to keep control. And a quarterback quietly sitting on a powder keg of leverage. The Browns can still fix this, but only if they act. Starting Sanders now isn't about pleasing fans or the media. It's about doing the bare minimum to protect their future. To salvage the trust they've already spent half a season squandering. Because if this goes any further, they won't just be out of the playoff race. They'll be out of options. If you're watching this circus and thinking there's no way this ends quietly, you're probably right. So go ahead, drop your take in the comments. Should Shedeur demand a trade? Is Stefanski done after this season? And what would you do if you were in Sanders' position? Like the video, send it to someone who's just as fed up as you are, and hit that subscribe button. Because if you think this is the bottom for the Browns, you haven't seen the next episode. The Browns aren't just blowing a season, they're actively dismantling the future of a franchise quarterback in real time. This isn't a coaching misstep. It's a full organizational failure, layered in ego, protected by silence, and propped up by a collapsing narrative that no one believes anymore. They drafted Shadur Sanders. They knew what he brought to the table. His leadership, his poise, his accuracy under pressure. And beyond that, his platform, his pedigree, his presence. He walked in with the tools to elevate this franchise from being the NFL's what could have been to something resembling relevance. And what did they do with all that? They buried it. Stuck him behind Dillon Gabriel, a quarterback whose ceiling was clearly exposed by week 3. A guy who's turned conservative football into an art form, and not the kind that wins games. And through all that mediocrity, all the blown leads, all the stale offensive drives, the Browns just sat there, doing nothing, except hiding Shedeur. Behind a phantom injury. Behind tight-lipped press conferences. Behind half answers and empty promises. And it's starting to look more and more like it was never about development. It was about control. Control that Kevin Stefanski is now losing by the day. He reportedly begged Shedeur to take the field. That's not rumor. Multiple insider reports have confirmed it. Stefanski, under fire, stuck between the weight of a failing season and the heat of fan outrage, turned to Sanders. And Sanders, cool, composed, and absolutely done with the games, said no. Not out of fear. Not out of injury. But out of principle. Because why would he? Why step into a storm you didn't create, with no backing, no system tailored to your skill set, and no trust from the staff that sidelined you from the beginning? Why save the team that sold your narrative short and expected you to fix what they broke? This wasn't Shedeur refusing to play. This was Shedeur taking his power back. And the Browns? They're left exposed. Stripped of excuses. No longer able to use the "he's not ready" line. No longer able to hide behind Gabriel's progression. No longer able to pretend this is anything but what it is, An outright refusal to adapt. That refusal is now costing them dearly. The locker room is reportedly starting to fray. Veterans are questioning decisions. Younger players are growing skeptical. You can only watch the same losing script play out so many times before people stop buying in. And this locker room is nearing that threshold. Fast. You think they haven't noticed Sanders showing up to practice healthy? That he's not in treatment, not limping, not nursing anything that would justify being benched this long? They see it. And when you've got one guy taking the blame week after week while the obvious solution stands silently on the sidelines, it creates tension. It creates doubt. And in the NFL, doubt spreads fast. And then there's the external pressure. The local Cleveland media is ripping this staff apart, deservedly so. The narrative isn't controlled anymore. Headlines aren't asking when will Shedeur play? They're now asking why hasn't he played? That shift is huge. Because now the burden of proof is on the staff. They're being challenged, not just questioned. Nationally, the scrutiny is growing. Analysts are calling the situation baffling, inexcusable, and textbook dysfunction. Even rival execs have reportedly said that if Sanders becomes available, they're ready to move. That's not noise. That's movement. Which leads to the next obvious storm cloud, a potential trade. You think Deion Sanders hasn't considered it? That the Sanders camp hasn't had conversations, informal or otherwise, about contingency plans? Because once the season hits its breaking point and the staff still won't pivot, you better believe the option to leave becomes very real. And make no mistake, if Shedeur goes public with his frustrations, this franchise is finished. The backlash would be brutal. Every failed decision, every dodged question, every fake injury update, it would all get laid bare. And the league would never let them live it down. We've seen how fast these narratives turn. One Instagram post, one interview, one mic drop from Deion. That's all it would take. And Cleveland's already fragile reputation would collapse under the weight of one sentence. They wasted him. And the damage? It wouldn't stop with media hits. It would ripple. Free agents would take notice. Agents would hesitate. Fans would walk. No quarterback wants to be the next Shadur Sanders, drafted high, locked in a PR cage, and abandoned when it mattered most. But here's the irony. All of this was preventable. The Browns had the opportunity to make the smart, obvious decision at several points this season. They could have transitioned to Sanders early. Could have built an offense around his mobility, his deep ball touch, his ability to extend plays. They could have re-energized the fan base. Could have admitted the Gabriel experiment wasn't working. But they didn't. They clung to it. Because admitting failure is harder for some teams than fixing it. And that brings us to the GM, Andrew Berry. His fingerprints are all over this. He drafted Gabriel. He's protected Gabriel. And now that it's clear this isn't working, instead of pivoting, he's entrenching. Choosing pride over production. And it's that kind of thinking that has destroyed plenty of front offices before this one. The longer Berry and Stefanski keep playing this game, the more likely it becomes that the entire leadership team gets wiped. And not just because of the losses, but because of the why behind those losses. Losing while developing a rookie QB? Understandable. Losing because you refuse to develop the right one? Career ending. So what happens now? Do they start Shedeur next week? Do they issue a vague "he's now cleared" statement to save face and hope he bails them out? Do they throw him into a broken system with zero support and cross their fingers? Or do they keep stalling? Keep running Gabriel out there until the season is too far gone to recover anything? Either way, the damage is already done. The trust has eroded. The locker room has questions. The fans are furious. And the franchise is losing its grip on the only player who could turn this around. They're not protecting Shedeur anymore. They're alienating him. And if they're not careful, he's going to walk, and take the last shred of hope with him. So let's recap. The Browns have fumbled this entire quarterback situation from the jump. They buried their most talented player under a cloud of injury rumors and fear-based leadership. They ignored the fans, ignored the media, ignored their own results. And now they're watching it all unravel. This is no longer about when will Shedeur play? It's about whether he'll even be around when they finally realize what they've done. And at that point, might be too late. It's honestly getting hard to keep track of all the unforced errors the Cleveland Browns are making right now. Because what's unfolding in Cleveland isn't just another quarterback controversy, it's a full-blown identity crisis. A franchise stuck in neutral, too proud to change direction, and too scared to face the truth. They're wasting Shadur Sanders. This isn't just bad optics. This is organizational malpractice. The kind of situation that front offices don't recover from. Let's stop pretending like this is about a slow development plan. Let's stop pretending this is about protecting a rookie. That narrative crumbled weeks ago. The team is 2-6. The offense is bottom tier. The fans are openly hostile. And the quarterback they insisted on, Dylan Gabriel, is putting up performances so uninspired, you'd think the goal was just to keep games close enough to lose politely. It's not just that Gabriel's struggling. It's that the coaching staff is pretending he isn't. They're shielding him, propping him up, clinging to a version of events that stopped being believable around week 4. And with each game, each loss, and each press conference that dodges the real issues, they're pushing this franchise closer to the edge. And Shedeur? Still waiting. Still watching. Still the most talented player in the room, and still somehow not playing. That alone should tell you everything about where the Browns are mentally right now. They're stuck in fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of what it means to admit that Shedeur should have been the guy all along. Fear of what it looks like when the backup turns out to be better than the starter the front office handpicked. And it's not just about Shedeur being better. It's about him threatening the system. The way he plays, the attention he brings, the voice he has, those things don't fit neatly into the Browns' carefully constructed hierarchy. He's not the kind of quarterback who sits quietly and does what he's told. He leads. He builds momentum. He shifts the power dynamic. And for a staff that clearly values control above all else, that's the real issue. Let's talk about that phantom injury again. There's been no diagnosis, no update, no rehab schedule, no timetable, just silence. And that silence? It's been screaming. This isn't injury management, it's image management. It's a smokescreen, a shield, a way to justify why your most game-ready quarterback is still in a hoodie on the sideline while the offense drifts into oblivion. And the media isn't buying it anymore. Reporters have stopped asking if Shedeur is healthy. They know he is. The question now is why he isn't being played. Why the Browns are willing to tank an entire season just to avoid admitting they made the wrong call. Because that's what this is. Pride over production. Ego over execution. And it's killing this team from the inside out. Let's not pretend Shedeur isn't aware of all this. Of course he is. He sees what's happening. He's heard what's being said. He knows he was good enough to start from day one, and now he's being asked to be the savior after 8 weeks of being ignored? No, that's not how it works. When Stefanski reportedly went to him, begged him, to start, Shedeur said no. And that wasn't just a decision. That was a statement. He wasn't going to step into a broken offense as a lifeline. He wasn't going to inherit someone else's mess, only to be blamed if he couldn't immediately fix it. That was self-preservation. That was strategy. And it was justified. Because the moment Shedeur plays, the spotlight returns. Every throw will be analyzed. Every possession will be judged. And if he's not given the right system, the right support, the right backing, it'll all come back to him. The narrative will shift. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he's not as good as we thought. And that's the trap the Browns are setting. Use him late, give him no room to fail, and then act surprised if he struggles. It's the classic scapegoat play. And Shedeur saw it coming a mile away. He's not just protecting himself physically, he's protecting his future, his value, his trajectory. Because every day that passes without meaningful snaps chips away at something bigger than stats. It chips away at momentum. And when your name is Shadur Sanders and your father is Deion Sanders, momentum matters. Right now, the Browns are treating that momentum like it's disposable. And the consequences? They're coming. The locker room is reportedly divided. Some players are openly wondering what the plan is. Others are frustrated by the lack of change. This isn't a united front anymore. It's a collection of guys watching leadership fail them. And it's only a matter of time before that frustration turns into action. Whether that's players going to the media, leaking frustrations behind closed doors, or just checking out mentally, it's coming. And let's not forget the one card the Browns don't want pulled, Deion. Because up until now he's stayed quiet, strategic. But he's not going to stay silent forever. Not when his son is being misused. Not when his reputation is being tied to an organization that doesn't know what it's doing. One quote from Deion? This entire thing explodes. And you already know he won't hold back. So what happens then? The national spotlight gets brighter. The criticism gets louder. Trade rumors ramp up. And the Browns go from being disappointing to being a full-on case study in how not to handle talent. You think Shedeur doesn't have options? Teams would line up for him. Build systems around him. Hand him the playbook. Give him actual support. Actual development. Actual leadership. And if Cleveland keeps playing this game, he's going to take one of those offers, and leave the Browns scrambling to explain how they fumbled the easiest decision they ever had. And it won't just be a bad look. It'll be career-ending for some. Stefanski? He's already on the hot seat. Every week it gets hotter. Every failed game plan. Every non-answer. Every decision to stick with Gabriel. It's all accelerating his exit. And Andrew Berry? His talent evaluation is now under the microscope. You can't draft Gabriel early, ignore Sanders, and think no one's going to hold you accountable. Because they are. And it's happening now. So what's left? They can start Shedeur, finally, and hope it's not too late. But even that comes with consequences. Because now they're doing it on his terms. Not theirs. They had their chance to lead. To get ahead of this. They blew it. Now they're reacting. And they look weak doing it. And if they don't start him, if they keep dragging this out, then they might as well prepare for the fallout. Because the Sanders camp won't stay silent. The media won't stop digging. And this fanbase, already livid, will completely turn. There's no salvaging the season at this point. But there is something worth salvaging. The relationship with your franchise quarterback. And that window? It's closing fast. If you're still here watching this mess play out, you're not alone. Drop your take in the comments. Should Shedeur take control and demand a trade? Is Stefanski already done? What does Dion need to say for this team to wake up? Like the video. Send it to every Browns fan who's been losing their mind all year. And hit subscribe because if you think this is the peak of Cleveland chaos, oh no, we're just getting started.